Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending this session. So my name is Nicolas Berthier. I work at British Gas, even though I'm French. And today I'm going to talk you through our APM installations at British Gas. So my presentation is going to be split into two parts. So the first one is how we use CA APM CEM for our call center application at British Gas. And then my second part is going to be about the smart metering infrastructure, how we use APM to monitor our smart metering infrastructure. So before I start, a little presentation of Centrica. So British Gas is part of Centrica Group. So Centrica is a major player in the energy markets. So we have a revenue of 28 billion pounds. We have approximately 30 million customers across the globe. So direct energy is part of Centrica, as well as British Gas. And our gas and liquids production is around 80 million of barrels of oil equivalent. So today the presentation is going to be about British Gas. So British Gas is part of Centrica. So British Gas is a long-established British company. It's been founded in 1812 as a gas, light and coke company. So we serve around 11 million customers in the UK. So there are approximately 30,000 people working for British Gas in the UK and offshore, and 8,000 people working on the field every day. So the first part of our presentation is about how we use CA APM to monitor our call center application. So every time a customer needs something done about their account, they phone us, they give us a phone call, and one of our agents is going to pick up the phone call. So we have 8,000 agents logging in our application every day. So basically, whenever an agent has to do something for a customer, it's going to log into our application. So we have 30 different sites, 30 different call centers across the UK and offshore. And we use an application based on SAP CRM, and this is quite a big application. It's called the Agent Workbench, and it's generating 20 million HTTP transactions every day. So this is the application being used on the British Gas call centers, so called Agent Workbench. So it's a custom UI, and it's based on SAP CRM. So basically on the left of this screen, you can see buttons, and every single button corresponds to one customer journey. So for instance, if a customer calls us to move home, the agent is going to click on one of these buttons and it's going to open the move home journey. So a journey is like composed of different steps. So if you move home, so you're going to click on the move home, and then you're going to first select a customer, then to tell the system that the customer wants to move home, and then you have to select the new address, and then you have to select the new product. So this application is basically working in journeys and then in steps. So the motivation for CEM in that case was, I think 3 years ago, we didn't have a system to track the actual performance of this application, and we couldn't really tell what part of the application was working well and what part of this application wasn't working well. So we decided to implement CEM. So basically CEM can tell us on the application with a good granularity what is the part that's good and what part is bad. So on the right on that screen, we have SAP CRM. So that's basically the engine running the application. On the left, we have the call center agents. And in the middle, there is a load balancer because we have multiple SAP systems. And basically, we have a physical appliance sitting between the load balancer and the SAP CRM systems. And this appliance is like sending mirror traffic into APM. So the good thing for us with this kind of setup, we don't actually mess with the actual production traffic. All the traffic we use for CEM and APM is mirrored. So it's like a non-intrusive system. So with CEM, we end up with a lot of data, a lot of metrics around this application. And so what do we do with this data? Well, meetings, basically. So we have a team, a task force, with people from different backgrounds in the organization. So developers, DBAs, testers, like people working on performance. So we take the data from CEM, and basically we select the transactions in the application that's like the worst transactions, and we try to fix them one by one. So the first thing is we identify candidates, so the worst transactions in our application. Then we define a baseline for them. So for instance, 1 month or 2, we look at the response times, and then we try to implement a fix for them. So that could be a code change, a new index on the table, user education, or anything. And then we control the improvement of this change. So just to show you a specific example. So that's one screenshot of our application, and you see the red button at the bottom, cancel contract. So if a customer wants to cancel a contract, he's going to phone someone, full bridge gas, and then an agent is going to pick up the phone call, and at some point going to click on this cancel contract. So CAM is configured in a way that every single button is assigned on one specific business transaction. So for every single button click in the application, we get metrics such as average response time, number of errors, times out, etc., etc. So that specific button, cancel contract, so we've got metrics for it. So in the beginning of the year, this specific button click wasn't responding well, so we had a baseline of 8.97 seconds. So every time an agent was clicking on that button, it will take 9 seconds to process the query. So we identified a problem with this transaction, we implemented a fix, and then after the fix, we had a response time of 6.43 seconds. So we have like a savings of benefit of 2 seconds. So it's not a lot in itself, but if you take the number of times this button is clicked on the application, you end up with like savings in hours at the end of the year. So that's quite important because so far this year, 21 hours saved on the system only with this single fix. And because every time an agent is clicking on this button is on the phone with the customer, so it's 21 hours saved for the agent and 21 hours saved for the customer. So that's how this kind of fix is improving our NPS because, well, the customer is not waiting on the phone that much, and so it's like increasing the quality of the phone call experience to one of our agents. So let me get you through another example. So CAM, because CAM is sniffing the HTTP traffic, we capture the HTTP response times on HTTP headers and HTTP code on the system. So we can get every day, every week, every month, the number of HTTP 500 errors on the application. And so in that case, we can get for every single business transactions, the number of HTTP 500 errors, and we can prioritize and get focus points in terms of fixing HTTP 500 errors. So these specific errors, so we had a baseline of 41 errors a day for that, and then we fixed it, and it went to 4 errors a day. And this is very frustrating. So if an agent is like doing something on the Agent Workbench, and at some point it breaks, you have to start everything all over again, so it's a lot of frustration, both for the agent and the customer. So in that case, we save like 37 frustrations a day, and that's like definitely improving our NPS because, well, the customer doesn't have to wait when this is happening. So basically, if I take last year, so between September 2015 and September 2016, we went from 540 errors a day to 187 errors a day, so a 65% reduction in HTTP 500. So it's quite a significant improvement on the system itself. And this is saving a lot of frustration for our end customers. And we'll see how we are in September 2017. So CAM is sniffing all the HTTP traffic and reporting metrics such as average response time, number of errors, but it's actually reporting on more stuff. So if you take the time to dig in and double check what's actually within CAM, you can end up with good information. So for instance, tracking the IP addresses. So because we can, using the subnet, get the groups, we can get geolocalization and we can tell which one of our call centers is actually the most busy, the busiest, and we get, well, a lot of key metrics on our application. So all the information from CAM is being fed to Introscope using a test agent. So we can build dashboards on top of it. So that's a WebView dashboard. So in our building, in our organization, we have a couple of screens, and we can display live data about our application and traffic lights over the big business services of our application. So if everything is red, basically it means that we have a major problem with the application, and we can react quickly. And we have a lot of alerts defined as well. So it's a very good monitoring tool and very flexible monitoring. So that's for CAM aspect. So now I'm going to talk you through another APM installation. So we have two distinct APM installations. So one is APM and CRM for the call center. So that was the previous slides. And we have a separate APM installation, like a core APM for the smart metering infrastructure. So you all know what a smart meter is. So like in the traditional installation, you have a meter at your place, and this meter is tracking your gas and electricity consumption. And then from time to time, you have to yourself send meter reads to your energy supplier, and then they're going to use this meter read to bill you, basically. So you have consumed that much gas, so we are going to bill you for it. So smart meter is slightly different. So it's a device tracking your consumption as well, but it's like sending itself the reads to your company, like with high frequency. So it's actually better for you because you end up with like a better bill. So I think on average, people with smart meters have like a 5% reduction in electricity and gas bill. And for the energy suppliers company, it's better as well because you rely less on estimates. So just making the whole system more efficient, basically. So far, out of our 11 million customers, we have 2.8 million smart meters. And we are rolling out 100,000 smart meters every month. So it's quite an intense pace. And I think by the British law, every single customer should have a smart meter by 2021, I guess. So that's what the smart metering is. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk you through a very specific smart metering scenario, which is the prepayment scenario. So when you opt in for a smart meter, you can either select a direct debit smart meter or a prepaid smart meter. So basically you top up your smart meter with, let's say, 20 pounds, 50 pounds, and then you cannot consume more than like 50 pounds worth of electricity and gas. And this is going to cover this specific smart metering scenario. So this is a simplified smart metering infrastructure at British Gas. So on the right, we have the smart meters, so our fleet of like 2.8 million smart meters. And then we have the Trilliant infrastructure talking to the smart meters. So before that, we have the VMS, the Van Management System. So this is a bespoke application. And this application is containing all the logic of the van. So for instance, if I have 10 pounds on my account and I'm just topping up with 20 more pounds, I'm going to end up with 30 pounds, and then it's going to contain all the logic about the payments within the smart meters. And on the left, we have the prepayment channels. So if I want to add like 20 more pounds into my smart meter, I have different ways of doing it. So for instance, I can call British Gas, I can go to the website, I can use the app, I can go to my post office, or I can use PayPoint, like the yellow boxes, the UK. So this is basically the way it's working. And so my point is, so we use APM to monitor the whole thing, and we have different number of agents connecting to all the individual components of this. So we have agent connected on the VMS, on Trilliant, and all the data is fed into one single place. So we have one consolidated view of the way the smart metering is operating. So let me get, so this is basically the same view, but from an APM perspective. So it's basically the same flow, but with the different metrics. So on the left, we have the different channels, post office, PayPoint, the website, the app, etc., etc. And you see the number of vans for that specific channel a day. So it's a cumulative value per day. Then we have a couple of other metrics. So we have the PI. So PI is the SAP middleware managing some of the stuff in there. Then we have VMS status, so the Van Management System status. We have the Trilliant bit, and then we have the British Gas. We have the smart meters, like custom British Gas script for them. So I think the good value with APM in that case is, so you see in this consolidated view, some monitoring for all these components with different technologies. So on the left, we have SQL. In the middle, we have custom scripts. And then we have a SQL again, and then we have like a mix of different agents, so active MQs and stuff like that. And on the right, we have custom scripts again. So we have a good flexibility to like collect metrics and to report data from like any components of this, basically. So with this data, so we have live monitoring, we have dashboarding, we do reporting as well. We have a number of alerts sent to different parties whenever one of these components is breaking down. So it's a very flexible and comprehensive monitoring tool for this kind of complex infrastructure. So if I go back, so this is the kind of metrics we can pull out with APM. So that one is showing the number of events for pay points every day. So we see a kind of pattern, a trend. And so whenever there is a green dot, it means that the pattern is broken, basically. And so for instance, the first one is a bank holiday in the UK, and so that's a problem. And the other one, so for instance, that one, you see a little glitch in the chart, and that's because the service wasn't available for a couple of minutes from the third-party provider, and so that had alerted right away, because that's not supposed to happen. So whenever this metric is not reporting data, basically there is no money going in. So this is giving like a good idea of the way the events are like going in the system. And I'm thinking of, so in APM 10 we have this differential analysis feature, and that would be a good candidate for differential analysis, because at the moment we have to tell APM how we can like decide that it's not working properly, but with differential analysis, APM will be able to detect itself that the events are not working. So, yeah. So if I continue on this APM for Smart, we are using the new feature of APM 9.7.1, the RESTful API. So we are basically capable of sending custom metrics into APM. So we have a number of scripts on our boxes, and then we can curl the metrics into APM, and then we can make more elaborate dashboards and more like speaking metrics. So for instance, that slide is about an incident that happened the 20th of July this year. So we didn't get events for one of the channels, and so that will have been picked by the script, and then the metric has been sent to APM. And so this is the timeline of the incident resolution. So basically, as soon as the event stopped, we got an alert from APM, and then we investigated, and we understood that the problem came from our third party, and we were able to tell them, well, it's not working anymore, and they fixed it. So it's quite convenient to feed any metric in APM, sorry. So another one, so in APM we kind of appreciate the self-monitoring aspect of it. So because APM is quite, so you need to look at it basically, and so I think it comes with a good self-monitoring metric, so it's quite appreciable to manage it. So that was the APM aspect for smart metering. So now I'm just going to step back a little and just give a kind of feedback on the way we've implemented APM and CEM. So if I come back to the first part of my presentation around CEM, so I'd say that the thing with CEM is not like a seamless implementation. So if you plug your CEM or APM into a system, you've got to know your system beforehand. You have to understand how it works, that you have good monitoring and alerting on it. So for the call center application, we've had to add, so that's a table from SAP, and we added like almost 1,400 tags into our system, just so that CEM could recognize the traffic. So for the smart aspect, so we had 40 Java and AP agents for smart. So I think this is not like a big APM installation. I think some, like our colleagues from Barclays, for instance, they have like hundreds, thousands of agents, but it still is quite a lot of work to deploy this agent, and you have to understand how your application is working if you want to get like good value and good metrics. And so for us to install APM for our call centers, it took us 3 months, so before the beginning of the implementation project and the time we actually started to define a business transaction and to get metrics. So it's quite a long time to install this component. So I think we get the value at some point, but like the initial effort is not nothing basically. So that being said, APM still is our strategic technical monitoring tool. So at the moment we have 3 main APM landscapes and 2 in our scope. So one for SAP and one for Smart. So one is 9.7 and one is 9.7, one is 10.2. So like the roadmap for us in terms of APM, so for SAP we are planning to upgrade from 10.2 to 10.5 for a number of reasons, and one being some optimizations in the core CEM configuration aspect. So we are doing more and more stuff around CEM. So we are using CEM to monitor the SAP HTTP traffic. So for CRM, NetRiver Gateway and PI, which is the SAP middleware. We are working on integration with Eternity, which is another tool, just to send metrics from Eternity into our APM investigator tree to make more dashboards. And as well, more like in a DevOps aspect, we are trying to improve the way we are mapping and adding stuff in CEM, because at the moment we take like the existing traffic and we add the configuration into CEM, and we are trying to optimize the way this is done. So as soon as something new is new in the system, we are trying to make CEM ready for it. So if a project manager or dev lead is like adding something into CRM, well, the days in the system, CEM is ready to collect the metrics, and kind of live, they can get the data. So on the smart CA APM, so we are going to upgrade from 9.7 to 10.3 next year, and mainly to use the Team Center, because at the moment we cannot use Team Center for our APM. And I think it's pretty bad because most of the components are using web services to communicate, and we cannot use like the correlations between the components. We cannot really do like good triage with it. So we have good dashboarding, but we are missing the triage aspect. And on the smart aspect as well, so we are trying to integrate better with other teams, and just like to make our dashboard more available, and just like to gather more requirements from them. So we have more ideas for deploying more APM, so deploying more agents on other landscapes at Bridge Gas. And we are trying as well just to consolidate all the dashboard and the data, and just to make it like more self-service for our users. So if I wrap up on the benefits, so on both installations of APM we have, I think APM is good if you want to improve your application, so you can diagnose the problems like in the different components of your applications, so you can really see what's wrong. It's good for error reduction, so in CEM you get a view on the HTTP 500 errors. On the pure APM, you have a lot of metrics on your system, on the like business metrics, so it's good to reduce the number of errors, and you can report on it. So it's better understanding of systems as well. So you have a lot of metrics, and then again, you can, if you take the time to dig out the metrics and to try to understand, well, you might see stuff you wouldn't maybe know before you implemented APM. The real-time monitoring is quite good, so whatever metric you have, you can make a dashboard out of it, and then you can report on that dashboard, and you can publish the dashboard. So that's pretty cool. And the flexible alerting, so any metric can be converted into an alert, and then you can raise an MP trap and an alert, and you can generate incidents whenever your incident management system might be. So that's like the main benefits for us in terms of APM. So the limitations of CEM and APM, so I would say one of the main problems for us is like the limited analytics and dashboarding. So if you take CEM, well, the only way to get the data is basically to log into the console and to pull out the metrics, like get them into Excel or do something. But I think we are missing a good like built-in analytics tool with CEM, and we see with APM as well. So you can make dashboards, you can extract data with the CLW, but we can't really easily make your data self-service for anyone. So for instance, on CEM, at some point we had to plug ClickView into it just to make something good in terms of data. And I think for APM as well, it's a good technical tool, but you cannot really share the data with your business right away. I think there is quite a bridge between the tool and the way you can share it with other people. So I quite appreciate the new features in 10.5. So I think the APM SQL, that would be good for us just to share the data. But I think some work needs to be done on that aspect. So on CEM and APM, I think it's quite manually intensive. So to configure CEM, well, you need to know your app, and you need to configure it properly to get the value. So that's quite something with CEM. And as well, so with CEM, so it's very good if you have like a BSP or a classic HTTP web application to monitor. So you have a screen, then you click on the next button, there is an HTTP request going in, then a response going back, and then you've got metrics for it. But if you have more like elaborate web applications such as HTML5, where you have a screen with synchronous, asynchronous calls to different things, if you have like a drag and drop in your page, like you're dragging something from point E to point B, it's not really the kind of stuff you can capture with a tool such as CEM. So I think the new AXA, that will be the way forward from the new tool from CA to kind of monitor these kind of modern applications. So my last slide, just to wrap up. So I think APM and CEM have proven like a good value for us. So we really improved the system thanks to them. So the three things took quite a long time to configure them and just like to make them good. So you really need to know your apps before you implement them. They require quite a lot of maintenance as well, so don't let the frog boil. So if you just like leave APM like that and you don't like look at it, don't try to improve it, well, at some point it's going to deliver less value. And the last one, so involve stakeholders. So once APM and CEM are like up and running, they like deliver a huge value, a lot of metrics, a lot of data, and sometimes just a bit. So you need to involve like a maximum of number of people in your organization just to make sure that like this huge volume of data is being shared to everyone in the organization, because well, they're quite good tools, and sometimes you can miss value if you don't like involve the right people in your organization to make the most of the tools. So that's it. So we have 3 minutes for questions. Well, good. Thank you.